3 children here, and I love being involved in their education, and the schools are important to our entire family. I'm a leader in True North and a member of the Parent Power Committee, which is a group of community members dedicated to teaching families how much power they have in the school district, their schools, and the education of their children. The purpose of tonight's forum is to give us the opportunity to know the candidates running for office, learn more about who they are and what their values are. And with that, I would like to take a minute to introduce you to Tamara Brooks. Tamara.
Hello, I'm Tamara Brooks. I grew up in Delnart County, and then for the last 20 years, I've been moving around the country and even overseas as my husband is active duty Navy. We are now back home as he gets ready to retire. In all the communities we have lived in, we have had to jump right in to make them our home. One of the pieces of advice I always give to Navy spouses is to find your community and your people. You find that by finding those with similar values, and one of the ways to do that is volunteering. And so when I moved back in July, I found True North. True North Community Organizing Network is a nonpartisan organization working in Delnart and Humboldt counties and adjacent tribal lands. We are families, elders, youth, individuals of diverse faith traditions, races, cultures, and economic capacities. True North is a member of the Faith in Action National Network, one of the largest community-based efforts in the country, working in over 140 cities and 17 states. And we are affiliated with PICO, California, for People and Communities Organizing. We believe that human dignity is the heart of justice and progress, and that for a true and honest democracy to thrive, every person needs the opportunity to be heard and respected, and to have a say in decisions that shape their lives. We believe that when people have power, they can protect the things that are important to their families and their communities. And that one way to have power is to build strong, broad-based, grassroots organizations. We believe in providing community leaders and with the tools, coaching, and infrastructure needed to create the kind of systemic change that can help everyone in the community thrive. Some of our community organizing successes include developing and delivering the school superintendent program and toolbox for increasing family engagement in students' education, providing significant input into the language and content of the school district's updated bullying district policy that was unanimously passed in December of 2019, successfully advocating for the addition of one or more counselors in Delnart Elementary School sites through the 2018-2019 process of LCAP community input meetings, getting a resolution to end homelessness passed unanimously by both the Crescent City Council and the Delnart County Board of Supervisors in the fall of 2018. And at the beginning of 2020, we formed the Housing and Homelessness Advisory Group, made up of stakeholders from across Delnart, and for the last several months, this group has been supporting our community members working on local emergency shelter efforts, working on bringing in more transitional and permanent housing, and collaborating with the county on their efforts to provide more support and housing in our community. And I would also like to take a moment and recognize that we are on tribal land. Wherever you are joining us from, either here in Delnart County or elsewhere, can you please take a moment and recognize whose land you are on? Thank you.
May I follow up on that a little bit?
All right.
I'm Cheryl Steinrich. I'm Tall Danny.
Cheryl, just one moment, please.
Okay. I just wanted
we wanted to host this forum in a way that respects everyone's time. So we ask that all speakers please stick to their time limits and pay attention to our timekeeper, Denise. Tonight's questions were developed by a team of True North core leaders with input from other community members. They are based on issues that have come from active work that we are involved with in this community, as well as reflect some of the current issue priorities of True North leaders and the community members that we are in relation with. All candidates were invited to attend tonight's forum, and each received the questions in advance in order to develop thoughtful responses. Please remember to make sure to put yourself on mute when you're not speaking. And to all of the participants, we do have the Q&A available, and if time allows at the end, we would be happy to take a question or two from the audience. But please make sure that those questions are addressed to all candidates, not candidate specific, and go from there. I would like to go back real quick to Cheryl for the land acknowledgement, as she is native to, her family's native to the area. Cheryl? Oh, you're muted, Cheryl.
Hi. Well, I just wanted to say you are welcome to Toloadani country. Here, Toloa goes all the way from the north clear down to the Klamath River, and we are neighbors to the Yurok as well. So thank you so much for being here in our country. Welcome.
Thank you, Cheryl. Now it is time to meet our candidates. This evening here we have our current trustee members, Frank Magarino and candidate Cheryl Steinruck, both running for the District 3 seat. And we also have current trustee member Charlene Mazie, who's running unopposed in District 4. We did reach out to Mr. Hartwick, who filled out the paperwork and is running, but his responses indicated that he potentially dropped out of the race and declined to participate. So with that, we will just jump right into the first question. Right here. So, Mrs. Mazie, we'll start with you. The question for tonight's forum is, why is running for school board important to you? And if you had a magic wand, what issue would you solve?
So can everybody hear me okay? Okay. So running for the school board is important to me. I did run in 2016. I came in second. And so when the incumbent decided to, or had to move and resigned, I applied and was selected to serve on the board. I had no idea that my second meeting was going to be voting to close the schools for 7 months. So this has been a little bit of a different experience than what I thought it was going to be, but I think it's important. I have lived in Del Norte County for 35 years. I graduated from Del Norte High School, returned here after I graduated from Humboldt State. I love this area. This is my home. I'm raising a son here. He has special needs. When I put my son into school now 6 years ago, I was shocked at how unprepared the school was for my son and what he needed and the support that we needed to have in order for him to succeed. And as I looked around, I saw that he wasn't the only one that needed additional support. And so I've spent a long time advocating for his needs. I feel like he's in a good place now, but I think there's lots of kids out there that need that voice. So that is, that's important to me. I am a problem solver. I look at things, I can see problems all over the place, but I always try to come with a solution. And so I want to bring that skill set to the school board and hopefully improve our community by improving our education and supporting our kids. Oh, the magic wand, money. I hate to be so crass, but there are so many things that if we just had the funding to do what's needed, a lot of problems would be solved. So that would be my magic wand.
Thank you, Mrs. Mazie. We'll go ahead and move on to Mr. Magarino.
Thank you. Moved out here in 2006. Met my wife, who was born and raised here, and she brought me up here and fell in love with the place from the minute we started dating back in 1996. We decided to move up here, and from the day we moved up, and even prior to that, we were always involved with the community in one way or another, whether it's volunteering for the Silver Ball, volunteering for our schools, volunteering during the period when we were doing Measure A for the bond measure, and and just volunteer in many aspects. Volunteered with the as a oversight committee with Measure A. I was also a part of the grand jury. I served in the grand jury for a year, and then I also served on the planning commission for a couple of years. And then when Francis Costello moved on, it just felt like it was just my next step into being a part of the community and to just provide more service and have a bigger impact. Uh, Also had kids in the school district, and we were a big part of the parent PTSO, um, and did a lot of fundraising. So I ran for school board in 2016, and I was elected. Um, Little did I know that these last 4 years were going to be incredibly insane in many ways, um, and a lot of very difficult decisions needed to be made. I felt like there were decisions that needed to be made that were very important, that affected our kids in a very direct way, whether it was with funding, how do you allocate it, and being a businessman, I felt that I have that ability to read budgets and figure out what to do. And also I have a passion for kids. Growing up, young and whatnot, I also grew up in a very difficult environment, you know, foster care, boys home, and teachers were always a big part of my life. They influenced my life in ways I couldn't even begin to explain. If it wasn't for the influence they had with the great teachers I had during my upbringing and the direction that they showed me to go, I probably would be a completely different person. I know that for a fact because some of the kids that I grew up in the boys' home, unfortunately, turned out not quite so well because they just didn't have that luck. Whereas others were very successful. So I can appreciate the importance of being able to be an influential with the school.
Do you have a magic wand response, Mr.
I
Margarito?
do. If I had a magic wand right now, I would put an end to this COVID thing and just eliminate that. And like Shalane said, more funding.
Great. Thank you. And now we will move on to Mrs. Steinreich.
Yes, yeah, I've really been contemplating this question. You know, I was born and raised here in Delaware County, raised in the village nearly Chundon, 1 mile up South Bank Road from Dr. Fine Bridge. When I attended Redwood School, graduated from Delaware High School. While I was in high school, I went to Upward Bound and ended up going to Humboldt State University, where I went from 72 to 76 and graduated. And I always knew I was going to go to college because my mom and her aunts all told us our whole lives, go to school, learn the white man's way, come back and help us. And so I knew I was going to do that. I just didn't know what I was going to be when I grew up. I started out to be a school teacher, and that didn't come to fruition, but I have been teaching my entire life. My jobs primarily have been in the grant arena. And so I know a lot about budgets, a lot about funding, as we're talking about here. I am very interested in education. My emphasis in college was K through 3rd grade. I have ECE training. I ran my own daycare. And as far as what's going on now, I had an opportunity to go ahead and visit the school board meetings, get around and talk to teachers, talk to staff, visit the schools that I'm around. And I look forward to working in that arena because I think that with the money that we do have, there's better ways that possibly we can allocate it. My wand would be, yes, to deal with the COVID-19. I'm almost tempted to use it there, but I'm not. This too shall pass. And so what I want to do is have us come together as a community. We are diverse culturally, we are economically depressed in this area, but I think we have a lot of intelligent people around here, and as we work together as a team, we'll be able to pull our school together and have a success for every student that walks the doors.
Thank you, Mrs. Steinreich. We're going to move on now to the next round of questions. The next round of questions will be introduced by various community members. with each person who's asking giving a brief background on the question topic, and then they will be asking their question. With that, I'd like to introduce Melissa Endert. Melissa.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Melissa Endert. I am a transplant here from the Highland, California area. Hello. Let me start again. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Melissa Endert. I am a transplant here from the Highland, California area, which is about a 15-hour drive away. We have lived in Crescent City for the past 6 years after my husband took a job as the resource specialist for Smith River Elementary. I raised my 4 children in a small community called Valley of Enchantment, which is located in the San Bernardino Mountains. It was in this small community that I had to begin my advocacy for my children after witnessing firsthand injustices and inequalities pushed upon children that are considered disabled or different from others. My journey as a parent of a child with a disability began on January 25th in 2008, the day my Zachary was born. When he came into this world, he had his eyes closed so very tightly. We prayed for him to be able to open his eyes so he could see the love I felt for him. The day came when he opened his eyes, but I would never have the joy of having him look into my eyes so he could see my love for him. Instead, I would see him scream, run into walls, yell, and just fade into his own world, a world I had no clue of how to enter. After a 2.5-year struggle that included occupational therapy, speech therapy, psychologists, regional center tests, and more specialists, Zachary was diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder, which now is considered to be a form of autism. My pediatrician recommended that he be included immediately in settings with non-disabled peers while he continued to receive interventions. However, Head Start would not take him because he had too many needs. Eventually, I was able to enroll him into a small speech group provided by the County of San Bernardino. This lasted for a few months until the speech therapist recommended that I enroll Zachary in a moderate severe self-contained preschool class, which was offered 45 minutes away from my house at another elementary school, Lake Arrowhead Elementary. When Zachary began his preschool class, I finally felt that I was getting the interventions needed to help my little boy feel like he belonged in this world. That changed a few months later when I got a call that no mom wants to hear. Mrs. Endert, your son is being transported by ambulance to Loma Linda Children's Hospital. He had a grand mal seizure after falling off of a tricycle. Further testing led to a diagnosis of epilepsy when Zachary was just 3.5 years old. Now I'm in Crescent City, where I have dedicated myself to being my children's advocate, especially my Zachary, whether that be in subbing in the schools to provide a service to my community, or whether it be on the many committees where I have had the pleasure to serve, including School Site Council, PTSO, Medi-Cal Collaborative, District Advisory Committee, and the Community Advisory Committee of SELPA. While serving on the CAC, SELPA, I learned of several discrepancies between what is offered and provided for families in Humboldt County versus what is offered here in Del Norte County. With the meetings mainly being held in Humboldt County Offices of Education with video conferencing for us in Del Norte, I felt that Del Norte was getting underrepresented and underserved. Unfortunately, I had to end my term early on the SELPA CAC because of an increase in Zachary's seizures. However, I will continue to advocate for my children in any way I can, and especially for my son, Zachary. The question that I would like to ask school board members is, how will you address the lack of funding provided here for our students with disabilities due to not having our own special education local plan area, or SELPA, but being tied into the Humboldt County SELPA? Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Mr. Magarino, we'll begin with you. You're on mute, Mr. Magarino.
You know, being as remote as we are, we always tend to get ignored. And we're always looking for grants and opportunities to bring in more funding into the school area, into our district. And we go out far and wide to try to bring all those funding in. Being at a disadvantage that we are, we're always trying to figure out what's the best we can do to provide the needed help that our special ed kids and students need. It's a tough question. I mean, it's a tough predicament that we're on, and we continually seek opportunities, continually try to recruit individuals that have those skills that can provide that service, and it really is a tough predicament that we're in. We would like to do more and go above and beyond and spend all we can to provide that kind of service. But at some point, we just don't have the money, and I wish we did. I wish we could recruit more people, and I wish we could recruit folks that have that particular expertise. But we just it's a difficult task to do. And trust me, we bring that subject up all the time, and we try to do whatever we can to provide the services that we can for all our students, all the students. So yeah, it's tough. It really is.
Thank you, Mr. Macarino. For the next, we'll move to Ms. Steinruck. You're muted. Mrs. Steinruck, you're still on mute.
My computer, I apologize. One of the things we always have a problem with is our budget, no matter what. I mean, I don't care what we're talking about, even if it's COVID-19, getting enough coverage for the PPEs and whatever the hell, whatever else. My concern is that I have had experience with us living in Delaware County and having us as a satellite to Humboldt County. United Health Services is a good example. And CASA, a lot of other programs are piggybacked off of Humboldt County. One of the things that I think we need to do seriously within our district is, yes, we do have these special needs children. Yes, we do. And for me, I'm not really apprised of all the situations, but I tell you what, I think that when we look at the budgets, we look at how we're spending the money. I think we have money in our district. We could just spend it a little differently, possibly. And there are definite needs that we have to fulfill. And this is one of them. And I have members of my family who have special needs, and I know how difficult it is for their families. I know how difficult it is even when we have dyslexia in my family. And so I know that as we pull our resources together, our programs that already exist, and like you're talking about, all those things that you've been involved in with Mrs. Endert, with all those different programs, that's how we can coordinate and work as a better team and not let these children fall through the cracks. And I'm very interested in getting to know Brooke Davis and the different staff members that can help us come up with viable solutions. I know we have them there. It just might take some work and time. And as we work our budget, we look at our spending, we look at our resources, I think we can come together and find a solution that will be accepted by everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Steinruck. Mrs. Mazie, your turn.
So, Melissa, my heart goes out to you. I have been so lucky with my son that he is not typically autistic, where he does like to cuddle, he does make eye contact. I can't imagine how heartbreaking that must have been. So my heart goes out to you. I am not opposed to looking at splitting off the SELPA from Humboldt. I have also throughout my career seen that when we have Humboldt Del Norte services that are based in Humboldt, that the majority of board members are in Humboldt, that Del Norte does tend to get the short end of the stick. And I, I don't have enough time to go into the many examples of that. My concern is that the director of the Humboldt Del Norte SELPA right now is very knowledgeable and has a lot of expertise that I would not want to lose by splitting off. I think we do have a deficit in expertise in Del Norte County in the school district in special ed that I don't want to imperil. The one thing that I have been mentioning at board meetings and that I really would like others to follow up on too is there has been a huge expansion in the types of services and the types of service providers that are now allowable to bill to Medi-Cal. And I am not sensing enough urgency in getting that taken advantage of. That can expand the amount of funding that's available to these special services, even down to behavioral health intervention that has not been billable in the past. So to me, that is the most urgent funding for special ed that we need to be pursuing, is making sure that every penny that we can bill to Medi-Cal is being billed. But I do think we need to look at the trade-offs of belonging to Humboldt Del Norte SELPA as opposed to being our own.
Thank you, Mrs. Maisie. All right, moving right into our third question of the evening, I'd like to introduce Crystal Hilton. Crystal.
Good evening. I just want to thank the candidates for showing up. My name is Crystal Heltman. I have 2 sons at Margaret Keating School and 1 who just entered Crescent Oak this year. At the school board candidates forum 2 years ago, I asked the very same question I'm going to ask in a couple minutes, but I'm not going to introduce it with data as I did then. Instead, I'm going to tell you what happens when kids in Klamath can't get equitable resources at Margaret Keating. The lack of equitable educational opportunities, special education services, and extracurricular activities causes some families to drive their children to a school other than Margaret Keating. I'm in a relationship with at least 4 families who have multiple children who have, in a sense, left our school community because their children did not get what they needed to be successful. Often, this is due to special education needs. Everyone in Klamath knows that you send your kids to town schools if they need specialized special education support. A few have decided to leave Margaret Keating because of the lack of extracurricular activities, such as sports teams. And others have left because they don't want their child to become another statistic, since Margaret Keating is still the lowest performing school in the district. This is not because our children aren't bright. From parents' perspectives, it's due to a lack of equitable resources and support at Margaret Keating. I'm sorry. When families drive their students to town and back every day due to lack of equitable resources and support, it takes its toll on those families, as well as disconnects students and families from each other within our community. As a parent, I have to watch as good, concerned parents take that parent energy to another school. It's both sad and preventable. Inequitable resources also leads to some of our children entering middle school without the literacy and math skills to be successful. Sorry. These students are often seen then, usually, as behavioral problems as they continue to get further behind. It sets some of our children up for failure and can lead these students to feeling that school is not for them. All of our children and all of our schools deserve to feel like school is for them. So the question is, in your opening statement, you answered why you are running for school board and what issues you would fix. With that in mind, how would you ensure equity in the decisions you make as a school board member?
Thank you, Crystal. This question we'll send to Ms. Steinreck first.
Okay, I'm here. You know, we had experience when we first moved back from Humboldt County to Del Norte County, and Dawn was teaching at Margaret Keating School. And we're familiar because, of course, I'm American Indian and come from the historical trauma that we suffered, as well as other people, not just us. And, you know, I got to bring up the book I got to read, and it talked about equity a lot in there. And, you know, we are made up of a blended community in that we have cultural diversity, we have economic depression, we have all those kind of things that happen in this county. And then when you exacerbate it with the fact that we have the rural community of miles away from each other, my feeling is, even though I'm in 3rd District, I would be over Smith River School and Mountain School specifically, but I think as a board member, I'm over every school. And I think that we're called unified for a reason. It's unified school district. That means every school should be treated exactly the same, with the same kind of things, so that each one of these children that enter the door are going to be guaranteed the best possible education that they can get. And since public schools are compulsory, since we have taxpayer dollars that pay for this, as well as bonds and other things that come from the local, federal, and state governments, there should be a way that we can work this out in Delaware County. And I have every faith in that we will do it, that we can do it. And as we come together and work in these different arenas of this diversity, that we can find solutions. I am positive. And I've attended board meetings, and I know that there are certain parameters that we have, but yet again, we can do a whole lot more as a school board. And I look forward to that opportunity. And I have some ideas, and I know I only have a minute and a half to talk here. And of course, I could talk longer than that. But I do have a lot of ideas of how we can bring this together. And I look forward to that because, you know, we talked about special ed. Now we're talking about equity. And, you know, if we just walked into the schools, we could see what's going on. If we just talk to the teachers, talk to the students, talk to the principals in their environments and see what's happening, we'll have a better picture. And I'm looking forward to that. I would really love it because to me, every child's success is if it's my own child. And I had a special needs child I raised for 4 years. So I know what it's like. And I know the work it takes and the love it takes. And I look forward to it. I honestly do.
Thank you, Ms. Steinrock. Mrs. Mazie, would you please take your turn?
I wish I had a brilliant answer for that question. I think that I have not been on the board long enough to understand the reasoning behind some of the decisions that have been made with respect to Margaret Keating. I know that when I was in school, Margaret Keating, the kids went there, it was a K-8 school. There was no busing of middle school kids to Crescent Elk. They had a sports team when I was in 8th grade. Smith River Wildcats played the Margaret Keating Golden Bears. And so I don't know what has happened in the interim. It's been lots and lots of years, but I think we do need to look, and unfortunately COVID has made it difficult to do those. Let's go look at the teacher in the school and, you know, talk to the students. But I do think we need to look at what we're doing with regard to Margaret Keating and see if there are community solutions that maybe are thinking a little bit outside the box, and how do we get the larger Klamath community involved? And it doesn't always have to be just the school district's thing. We have to reach out beyond the district bubble and say, what does the community need? What does the community want? And what can the community contribute to help us strengthen what maybe the school district just doesn't have? So I think there is a lot of looking to be done. Like I say, I don't have an answer right now, but I certainly am willing to find one, to look for one.
Thank you, Mrs. Mazie. And now on to you, Mr. Margarino.
Yeah, Margaret Keating School has always been, when I came on the board, I've always wondered why it was struggling so much and what we can do to support that school. And I've always pushed to get more resources to that school. I never understood why they only had a principal, half sharing principal. And I've always pushed, let's get more folks in there. Let's get, so that they got a full principal now, get more resources. They got more teachers, get more money in there, get, you know, that school needs to come up. We need to lift that school up. So we spend a great deal of time and money trying to figure out to get more resources in that school. And I think we were on a good path for that. Unfortunately, this COVID thing happened, and it's, you know, it's a process. Okay, we just can't come in and change the world upside down in the short period that I've been there. But it's nothing that has ever been in the back burner for me. It's always been in the front burner because, you know, growing up disadvantaged like I did, I always, to me, is something that is dear to my heart. I always look for those individuals that are underdogs, underprivileged, and I focus more on them and try to provide as much resources to them as we can. I know we have certain things that are coming down the pipe, we have it's called the Redwood Coast grant. It's a big grant that's coming in. It's about $3 million that's going to go, and a lot of it's going to go pretty much, towards those schools that are struggling. There's also another grant that's called the Redwood Coast Indian Career Path Program, which is a program that's specifically for the Native Americans. That's all that funding is going to go straight to them to help them build a pathway for the career that they want to get into. Not all the kids have to go and be doctors or whatever. Their kids that really would make a great living just, doing career stuff, like owning their own business, owning their own plumbing company or whatever. I, for one, never went to college. Well, I did go to college, but I never got a degree because I knew it wasn't for me. But I'm very successful. I'm a very successful businessman because I chose a different career. And then we have other big grants that are coming in and that actually coming into the works. It's called CalWell Grant, which is a grant that is going to expand the funding to help mental illness, or mental challenges for mental well-being. So there's a lot of money that's coming in through grants, and some of it's already in practice. It's already coming in that we're applying, and like I said, Margaret Keaton has always been a school that I've always put in the front burner and always asked, hey, what more can we do to get this school, help? Obviously, they're struggling. There's a need there, and so yeah, that's what I'm doing, is absolutely advocating for that, 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Magarino. Our next question will be asked by Sarah Barber. Sarah.
Hello, my name is Sarah Barber. My husband and I live in Klamath and have 2 children at Margaret Keating School. Right now, the whole world is going through a difficult time because of COVID-19. In our own community, life has been particularly difficult for families because of schools shutting down for a month back in March and then going to virtual learning after spring break. We know that the uncertainty is difficult to navigate for everyone, whether it be the families who send their children to Del Norte schools or the admin, teachers, and classified staff working to shift their models of education and distributing services in a time of crisis. Over the summer, our Parent Power Committee talked to families who told stories about trying to figure out how to support their children's education and also work at the same time, either from home or out in the community as an essential worker. The school situation has been especially difficult for single working parents. We spoke to families trying to navigate supporting education for multiple children at multiple sites, sometimes with success and sometimes with great frustration. We talked to families who were worried and anxious about decisions for the fall. Parents expressed concerns such as how to still ensure equity during a crisis, how to keep our kids and youth safe if and when they could return in person, and how can we address the social emotional needs of all staff and students throughout the year. Addressing concerns like these are not possible without genuine family engagement, which is always essential, but feels even more crucial during a public health crisis. COVID-19 has revealed just how much families rely on schools, but it's also important to point out that those who run the Del Norte Unified School District and county schools need our families as well. They need parents who are engaged and parents who have the information and support that they need to help their students succeed. Families don't just need to be given information. They need to be listened to, and their experiences and expertise need to be valued. What we're all going through right now is traumatic, but we can't just say that we're all in this together if we're not listening to what each other's needs are. This goes for parents, community members, teachers, principals, classified, superintendents, and even the Board of Trustees. So my question to all the candidates is, if elected, what are you as a board member going to do to reach out and engage with the families in Del Norte schools?
Thank you, Sarah. Mrs. Maisie, we'll begin with you.
So as a parent, I often straddle that line, and I've actually used myself as a test case. of saying, you said you sent all this information out. I didn't get it. I'm a parent. If I didn't get it, then it probably didn't get to everybody who needed it. I definitely think there are ways to improve how we get information from families and not just to families. I think outreach has been a challenge even in my job. I'm the executive director for the Del Norte Senior Center. I am having a devil of a time figuring out how to reach out to people that I used to see every single day in my center. I used to be on a school site every single day and talk to people and talk to staff and hang out and talk to parents and my son's aide. And that avenue just isn't there right now. So I think we have to be creative. I don't know if it's maybe doing virtual town halls where the topic is, or they're run by parents and not necessarily coming from the district itself. I think this group is critical. The information that you brought to the board when you did your surveys and your focus groups was absolutely essential for us to hear. For me, I am open always to emails are the best way to communicate with me. I think we have to be more responsive as board members. I don't know how many times I've been told in all the years, you're the first person that ever responded to an email. That's unfortunate. I think that it needs to be better. There's nothing that says we can't, there's a lot of stuff we can't do as board members in terms of promising things, in terms of, taking positions, but we can at least say, hey, I got your email. I get it. I'll do what I can. I hear you. So I think that's a big thing, to be open to that and to encourage parents to advocate for themselves. It isn't all going to come from the district. It isn't all going to be us reaching out to you guys. Sometimes you got to beat down the door and make us listen. And that's okay. They're your kids. They're our kids. We're here for them. And if you need to be outside the principal's door every day for a week, do it. So I am told to stop, so I will stop now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Maisie. Mr. Margarina, I'm sorry, we're going to Ms. Steinrich.
Well, as far as I can see, what I think needs to happen here is communication is the two-way street. And I used to be a probation officer for 5 years. One of the things I liked to do then was go to the schools and visit, go to the parents and visit. It wasn't because I was going there to spy on somebody to see what they're doing. I wanted to go and find out how they're doing. And that's what I would do here in this capacity, even with COVID, because we can still wear masks, we can still social distance, we can still talk to each other. We're not going to sit down and have coffee and dinner together, but you know what? I can find out a lot, and I talk to a lot of people. Because even today, our grandchildren were doing their Zoom lessons, and we're supposed to be starting back to school next week in classroom. Well, you talk about miscommunication. Our family didn't even get the rules from the school district about what's going on. Who's going to test, who's going to do this, who's going to do that for COVID-19. I am very concerned. I had tuberculosis when I was 8 years old, and I know about invisible germs and how they can kill you. And this germ that we're dealing with now is airborne. It's what we breathe. But in the meantime, I'm not going to let that stop us, because there's precautions we are taking to keep us safe here in our rural community. And I think that if we make an effort as a school board to sit down and talk with our parents, get to know what they need and want, and listen to them, then we will be able to deliver the things that we need to do from the school board perspective. And as we align our budgets, as we look at how we need to spend our money, maybe we don't need to spend it all on this busing and other ways. Maybe there's other things we can do. And so for me, I think that COVID-19 has exposed our inadequacies open wide. They're wide open. And so therefore, it's going to take creativity, innovativeness to figure out how we're going to mend our community. We are a broken community because of this. And I think that as we come together, communicate with one another, listen to one another, we'll be able to come up with some answers. And as a school board, we have that responsibility to set the vision, to set the policies, to put those things in motion. And I think as we hold hands with our community, with our parents, our teachers, our students, the specialists, everyone that we need, we're going to develop a good program for our children. They're going to come out ahead for this, and that's what we have to think about. I think about my grandkids having to work on a computer, you know, and they're liking it because it's kind of novel for them. But I know we need social interaction too. And I know that we need to have support for one another. I'm glad to hear these programs are coming in that Mr. McMagarino was talking about, because those are the real heart of the matter, you know? And I'm looking forward to that, to being able to offer this communication to the parents. That is a two-way street. You talk, we listen. Am I out of time?
Yes, you are. Thank you, Ms. Steinrock. Okay, Mr. Magarino, your turn. Mr. Magarino, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Since I've been on the board, I've had many conversations with lots of parents from throughout the whole district. And sometimes the feedback I get is that sometimes we're providing too much information, some information that they just kind of, you know, doesn't really apply to them, or how's that going to help them, or what is that going to do to help them with their challenges, and figure out how we can be more concise and how we get the message, because, you know, we're all busy people. We have families, we've got jobs, and to get information that doesn't really apply to you to some degree doesn't help. At some point, you just start thinking, why even bother listening to all these emails? Why even bother answering these questions and whatnot? And it does matter, because that information that we get from these focus groups, not only do we take it to heart, but we apply it. We figure out, what are we going to do to apply this that would affect the entire community in the best way that you possibly can? Because we are a diverse community with many, many challenges. We've got, you know, really extreme poverty. We've got homelessness. We got foster care. We've got, you know, well below the poverty level, and we're a struggling community. We don't have the resources that other wealthy communities have, and I think one of the resources that we do have is to get more parents involved in their students' education. How? By volunteering in their classroom, by being a part of the studies that their kids are doing, to like with me, when my kids were in elementary, and where I was still able to help them with math and reading and stuff like that, I was a part of that. When they're struggling with certain things, you know, just having a bad day, be there for them. Be a part of the PTSO. Show up to these meetings. Show up to the Sunday, you know, the events that the schools have. And it's a real struggle, but I think parent involvement and us reaching out to parents, I don't think we've done as good of a job as we should and that we can. But I think that's something that we need to focus more on, is that parent involvement. Because ultimately, the parents are the student's teacher. Thank you,
Mr. Magarino. Moving on, I'd like to let Mrs. Volos have her turn for a question.
Hi, my name is Charlotte Svolos. It is important to communicate with stakeholders in your community about educational issues before making important votes. As both a parent and a special education teacher in this district, I have seen examples when the district office has not been transparent in the information it has given. Some examples of this are telling board members that they cannot visit school sites without an escort from the district office, or meet to discuss situations outside of school board meetings with non-school board groups, such as employee organizations, representatives from those. People will understand that you cannot commit to a specific vote because of the Brown Act, but this does not prevent you from getting vital information about the real status of a situation that you may later vote on. So my question is, how would you get information from various sources and not rely entirely on information provided by the district when making decisions?
Mr. Magarino, you're up first. Mr. Magarino, you're muted. Mr. Magarino?
I know your question was blocking my mute button.
Oh.
That's why I couldn't get to it.
I couldn't tell if you were talking or not.
Yeah, I was trying to say the question was blocking my mute button. Okay, thank you. I think that's a misperception that we get the district or the superintendent basically telling us what we can and can't do, because as board members, we're his boss. We tell him what to do. He doesn't tell us what to do. You know, I can go to any school I want. All I have to do, the only thing I've been told is that just give them notice that you're coming. Let the principal know that you're coming for whatever purpose. And I have done that. I have gone to the high school. I have gone to Redwood. I have gone to Smith River without the superintendent. And I've had conversation with these teachers, and I've had conversation with the principals. And the superintendent wasn't there. There's nothing that says that he can prevent us from going to these schools. That's ridiculous. I've heard that before from somebody or somewhere, that you can't have these conversations without him being present. I don't know. I don't think that's true, because I have. How I get my other information is by having conversation with parents right along when I go to Safeway, or when I'm going to Walmart, or when I'm out and about and I see parents. They approach me and they give me their opinions, and they talk to me, and they ask questions, and I give them answers, and I give them guidance. But as far as us being controlled by the superintendent and the administration, I don't see that. I don't see that at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Magarino. Mrs. Mazie.
So I am going to disagree just a little bit with what Mr. Magarino said, and maybe in practice things aren't as tight as they seem, but I did read the board conduct policy. I didn't sign it. I wasn't asked to sign it, but it does seem to indicate that we have to notify the superintendent of any communications that we have with any staff, that we're supposed to inform him of any requests to meet with someone off campus. And I have friends, I have people that I went to high school with that work throughout the district. And that's how I hear a lot of stuff about what's going on. And I feel like I have an obligation to keep some of what I'm told confidential. And I decide what I will share and how I will share it. And so I do think there needs to be a re-examination of that standing policy, at least what's on the website, that we are free to talk to people. I understand where it comes from. I'm an executive director myself. I'm answerable to a board, and you don't want your board members to be going around behind your back and undermining what you're doing. So I understand where some of the policies may have come from, but I think they need to be relooked at in terms of, you know, the superintendent does work for the board. They don't work for us as individuals, but he does work for the board. We do have the right to talk to people, and I think that's Again, I was on a school site every single day when I dropped my son off and picked him up, and I did a lot of talking to people at that point. I have less time on other school campuses, but I think we should be allowed to do that as board, and I will continue to do that. I'll continue to be open to people talking to me, and I will hold what they say in confidence if I'm asked to.
Thank you, Mrs. Mazie. Ms. Steinruck.
Yes, I'm chomping at the bit here. Okay, for me, I want us to take a look at how I feel this is. I have to have my visuals up here. Okay, now this is showing the human body, and I'm equating our community, our school district, and everything up to the human body. Okay, the brain is going to be the stakeholders we're talking about. We're talking about voters, taxpayers, the greater community. That is going to feed down into here, into this heart, which is the school district. To me, the school district, we call the heart in our language, Shrey, and Shriek Hun means happy. It has to do with your heart is happy. Okay, so in the human heart, there are 4 chambers. And in those chambers, as far as I'm concerned, is what I've been able to see, is that there's a part for governance. Each one of these the heart is a muscle, and each one of these chambers has to work in unison to pump the blood into the heart and out into the body again. So I'm looking at this as governance, as the personnel, classified, certified, our curriculum design, all those things goes in here, and then back over here to, actually this is budgeting and whatnot. And over here is our facilities. Those things all have to work together in order for us to have this lifeblood that we have that comes from the school district, the vision, the policies, out to our parents, our teachers, and into our family members in the community. They're the hands and the feet. So as far as I'm concerned, the hub of the district is the school board. And the only way that we can make good decisions for all the people involved is to communicate with them. Come back and communicate with each other. We have a responsibility to set the vision. We have to adopt the policies and stuff that give direction to the district. We have to hire our superintendent, evaluate our superintendent. We have to do an annual budget. We have to manage a collective bargaining. And I think it's a crime that we don't have the teacher's contract in place, going on a 2nd year. That's unacceptable. We are in a hard time, yes we are, but we also need to retain quality teachers, and we have to appreciate them in what they do. Because if it wasn't for the teachers, we wouldn't have a classroom. And that's why I'm kind of concerned about putting them in harm's way along with our students that are going back to school too soon. And for me, I see this as being a very effective watchdog role, that we go out and we check and see. We make sure the school district is on track. We hold the district accountable for the results. And I think what's missing a lot of times is accountability. That's what I hear a lot, because it seems like it's just a one-way street on communication. And yes, we do have the right to get out and visit the schools, talk to the parents. We can have meetings, we can do everything, but we can't go and make decisions on behalf of the school board, but we can bring that data back to the board and make those decisions as a collective group. And that's what I'm looking forward to being able to do.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Steinruck. All right, with that, we're moving on to our next question. I'd like to introduce again, Tamara Brooks.
A lot of work has been done locally in our community to increase the use of culturally diverse and relevant curriculum into our schools. There is a graphic novel entitled "How Did We Get Here?" written by local author Ruth Rhodes that can be used as a resource that talks about the history of our region. You should have received a copy of this graphic novel and had time to go over it. With all that in mind, what are your general reactions to this graphic novel, and how would you support getting this resource and others like it into Del Norte schools?
Ms. Steinruck.
Okay, let's see, I gotta mute myself here. I was really impressed with this. I really was. I'm so thankful that I got a copy of it for myself. And, I know the people in here. I worked for Abby Abernathy. I worked as a judge in the Court of Indian Offenses, and she was my boss. Lauren Baumlin is my younger brother. Hilda Atrian and I went to school together. And so it's really kind of nice to see the people in here that I know, you know, in this community, and born and raised here. And yes, we do have, I was talking about the cultural diversity here in our community. We also are historically impacted. And that's what this book brings out, not only for American Indians, but for the Asian Americans, for the Latinx, the Latinx people, all those things, you know. And I'm out here, I live on the reservation in Smith River. And the school that my grandchildren go to is a Smith River school, and we see a lot of brown people there, and that's just absolutely wonderful. And you know, we interact with all the schools in the whole district. And for me, looking at Project 1619, looking at some of the other cultural sensitivity programs that are coming in are critical. We live in a very divisive country right now, with white supremacy taking over. And I'm really concerned after last night's debate, how many people are gonna wait to be told they can shoot their guns at us. And so I'm just concerned that unless we, as a district, grab this bull by the horns and pull ourselves together, we're gonna be in a lot of trouble here. Historically, we were massacred. We were put on reservations. We were denied our language, our culture, and all that. But you know what? Well, I always want to say oppression is happening somewhere in the world right now as we're speaking. And the thing is, we have a big enough mind to handle things. We have a big enough heart to take it in. Therefore, I think we as human beings can work this out. And I know that as we treat each other that way, with dignity and respect, regardless of who we come from and what we look like, I think we're going to get along a lot better, because basically we're just human beings with the same needs. And so as long as we are accepting of one another and work toward one another, we can learn from each other. My attitude is, I teach dressmaking classes. I teach different things. I will teach you anything you want to know, the little bit that I know. And I don't care what race you are. I don't care what family you come from, because if you want to learn something, you feel it in your heart, you should learn it. You have the brain capacity to do it. All it does is strengthen you as an individual and make you a better human being. So I really like this book, and I'm really looking forward to working with it any way I possibly can. I'm sharing it with anybody and everybody. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Steinrock. Mr. Magarino, your turn.
Thank you. Yeah, this book really resonates with me. I was very familiar with the history of the Talawad Nation and the Yurok people, and it resonates with me in many levels. In particular, being uprooted from my country. I was born in Cuba, and at the age of 7 years old, my country became a communist country, and my parents decided this is not for us, a socialist communist country. And we lost everything, totally uprooted. One morning we were put in a Jeep by military police, put in a plane. And the next morning I left a beautiful tropical country, and I found myself in New York in the middle of a blizzard. And when I got there going to school, I was, I was picked on and called words that, couldn't quite figure out what they meant. WAP, without papers, had a heavy accent. And it was a real struggle. And then moving on to Miami, same thing, running into folks that were very, very prejudiced and had a hard time understanding where I came from. And growing up in Miami in really rough neighborhoods, my family had a difficult time. My father passed away when I was young. So we ended up in foster care, ended up in boys' homes, ended up with a very rough upbringing. So this book does resonate with me, and it's a struggle. And the terrible things that happened to the Native Americans up here is just unbelievable. And it's something that can never happen again. And I think if we rise up and we work together, we educate each other and try to put an end to this nonsense. you know. So I have walked in these shoes, and I do understand that, and that's why you know, as a board member, I have a keen ear for folks that struggle, and I take it to heart, and I do everything I can within my powers to reach out and facilitate everything I can to make their lives improve and to do better for them. Because I know that there were teachers in my life that if it wasn't for them, my trajectory in my life would have been a whole lot different. They were very important in my life. So yeah, this book really resonates with me.
Thank you, Mr. Magarino. Mrs. Maisie.
So I want to start out by saying that the artwork in that book is phenomenal. Whoever drew those, that is just amazing to me to be able to draw like that. I have been wrestling with this since I read it. And that's probably part of the purpose, is to really make you think about things. I am absolutely 100% in favor of teaching not just local history, but I think we have to re-examine the curriculum, the way we teach history across the board. We are, you know, I'm Zooming my son's 5th grade history class, and we're still talking about Columbus discovering the Americas, and it's the Spanish, the Columbian exchange, as though there was an equal partnership from the people that he discovered in these new lands. So I think we need to take a look not just at local history. I know I did not learn, I knew about the relocation of kids to the Indian schools, but it wasn't until I was in graduate school that I realized that was happening up until the 50s and 60s. I had always learned that that was way back in the way back, and to find out that, you know, parents of kids that I went to school with, that was happening too. So it's intolerable. I did not learn about the local Native history in school here. So I think that all has to be taught. It has to be brought out. I think it has to be done with great sensitivity. It has to be done in a way. I think my biggest question about the novel that I came away with was there was a deep impression that Del Norte County just is an awful place to live, and it has so many problems and such a horrible history. And maybe that was just the mood I was in at the time. But I would like to have that conversation about how can we make it more positive? How can we highlight the kids that are successful here, that do find good things to do, that do come back and make this their home? So I think it's a great tool to start conversations, and I think we need to be looking for more stuff like it.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Maisie. At the beginning of the forum and earlier in the week, we put out to the community to submit questions for the candidates. And we said if time allowed, we'd love to ask them at the end. So we're happy to present you with a surprise question. This was submitted from a community member, and we have, if elected, what efforts will you make to see that the district continues to promote and cultivate bilingual students? That is to say, proficiency in English in addition to their native home language, be it Tolowa Deni, Espanol, Hmong, or other languages spoken in Del Norte. Miss Maisie.
So I would support and strengthen and encourage the programs that have already been in place, the seals that go on people's diplomas. When I attended graduation, there were students that had sashes and strings and cultural beads, and it was absolutely wonderful to see that diversity. That there was nothing like that when I went to high school. And to see us bringing those language recognition of the language proficiencies into their graduation diplomas, into their what they can wear at graduation, I think that's awesome, and I would absolutely continue those programs and strengthen them wherever we can.
Thank you, Mrs. Macy. Mr. Magarino.
Oh, absolutely. I'll do whatever I can to make sure that that we expand on those programs, and it's a proven fact that individuals that are bilingual or have multilingual tend to do much better. Not only much better in school, and much better in society and work, but also much better in understanding different cultures and bringing cultures together. Like, I'm bilingual. I can speak Spanish and I can speak English very fluent. I used to know Latin, but that went the wayside a long time ago. But to be multilingual or even just bilingual, you're in a position to bring different cultures together, I would advocate for whatever language, as far as, obviously we've got Spanish and Hmongs are doing some of their own language, and I know that the Tolowa Dini Nation is doing things. I encourage everybody to learn as many languages as you can, because it really has a profound effect on your life. And it's a proven fact that the more languages you know, and if you're bilingual, you tend to be more successful in life. You tend to have a better job. You tend to get if somebody else was competing with you for a position and you're bilingual, chances are you will get that position other than that person that's just one language. So absolutely, I would advocate for that 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Magarino. And now Ms. Steinreck.
I just need to tell a little story. When I was in 3rd grade, and we used to hear in our history books about how Indians were stupid and lazy, and they didn't want to work and all those kind of things. And I kind of looked at it sideways, because my grandfather could speak 5 languages. He couldn't read or write English, but he could speak Dani, he could speak Yurok, he could speak Karuk. And when he came to Fort Dick, he learned to work in dairies there, and he learned Portuguese and English. And so when I used to hear those stories when I was a kid growing up, I said, that's not true. I come from highly intelligent people. And one of the things that happened when I was a kid growing up, when we started revitalization of our languages, we would meet once a week at Delnart High School. And all the Indians, all the old elders from that time would come together. We all got to listen. And there were a few people like Ella Norris and different ones who were trilingual. They could speak Yurok, Tolowa, and English. When you look at that here in this area, we're very diverse linguistically. A lot of people don't even know that. And the same thing happens with Chinese and Hmong and all these others, even in Spanish. And one of the things that my dad always said, it doesn't matter how many letters you have behind your last name, it's if you can communicate with people and help them understand what you're trying to talk to them about. And so language is always important. I'm very good at the English language, it's my first language, but I do speak a little bit of Dani Wayat. And so for me, it helps me. And I agree with Mr. Magarino, the more languages you know, the better you are at thought processes. And it helps you to learn other concepts beyond that as well. It makes you see a whole different worldview. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with being multilingual, multicultural, and diverse, because humans have that capacity. It's our social norms and our government laws that keep us from doing that. I think the federal government was very wrong in trying to push only English, because when you go around the world, I went to the University of Oregon to get my master's in linguistics, And every person that came from all these other countries knew the English language better than I did when it comes to grammar and all those things. They're taught English in those countries. They're taught all these other languages. So why aren't we? I think we need to take a look at the bigger picture of where we are in America and join the rest of the world. And I'm looking forward to it here in Del Norte County. And that's why I love that book, because it brings in the different aspects of our diversity right here in that little book. So my hat's off to you authors and people who put that together. Thank you so very much. And I think it's a starting point. I love the questions at the end of the book, talking about those kind of things that we're talking about right now. And I think it would be good to have these points to be able to talk things over and get things out in the open and figure it out. It'll be exciting. It'll be a lot of fun.
Thank you, Ms. Steinrock. We had 2 more questions pop up and we've got time still, so we're going to go ahead and ask those. Participant tonight has asked, if a parent were to reach out to you, would you talk with them? Mr. Magarino.
Oh, would I talk to them? Absolutely. In fact, I've had parents reach out to me and I've had long conversations with them, in particular, you know, during this time of, during COVID, telling me about their struggle and how important it is that we need to open up the schools and get our kids back in there, because their kids are suffering. They're going through emotional, they're getting anxiety. And talking to these parents, you know, the work I do puts me out there on the street, and I'm always running around and meeting people, and you know, people are always putting me aside, and I would not have a problem, and I don't have a problem having a conversation with anybody and try to answer their question and provide the guidance that I possibly can, you know, short of violating the Brown Act. You know, short of if they ask me questions that pertain to closed sessions, obviously I can't have those conversations, but I can't answer questions that you know, that would direct them to areas that they can find the necessary resources that they need. But I've never turned anybody down, nor will I ever do that. That's part of my job, is to have conversations with them, to get you know, their feedback, so I can bring that to the board. And I'm sure the board have seen me before. They know, I've said, hey, I had this conversation with these parents. This is their concern. What are we going to do about it? Because as a single board member, I can't make any decisions. The decisions come from, you know, the majority, whoever makes the majority rules. So if 3 of us decide, well, there's a forum right there. So, but I always bring any questions that I'm approached with to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Macarino. Mrs. Mazie.
Absolutely. I am totally open to having a conversation with anybody. So again, email is the best way to reach me. I have a school district email. That's the best start, but yeah, please.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Steinrock.
In order for me to be an effective school board member and do my job, I have to listen to people. I have to listen to what they say. I have to be honest with them of what I know and what I don't know. If I know something about it, I will talk to you about it. If I don't, I'll say, okay, I don't know, but I'll look into it. Because to me, honesty is one of the most important things that we can project to people in terms of who we are as a person. And when someone gives their word, it's their honor. And I can't advocate for children if I don't know what's going on. And so if I have a parent willing enough to tell me what's going on, talk to me about it, then I should have the gumption to be able to represent them and advocate for them when the time comes. Because all the collective knowledge that these people are going to be giving me will help me in working as a team member on the school board to come up with our vision, come up with our plans, come up with the policies that we need that address our needs of our own community. And that's why I have to listen to the parents. That's why I have to talk to the teachers. That's why I have to talk to the staff. And yes, I do have that capacity. I can think analytically. I can take the information and put it in a succinct manner and present it. I'm not scared to work on a budget. I'm not scared to do any of that because the best we can do is the best we can do. And who knows, we might be able to reshape our community to the point that will change the trajectory here of Del Norte County. And we will be able to make it a beacon as far as, gee, let's stay right here in this God's part of the world. You know, this is God's country here. And I think that when we look at those kind of things and communicate with our parents, our teachers, I think we're going to do a good job. I really do.
Thank you, Ms. Steinreich. And we have time for one more question that was submitted. Hold on one second. Where did it go? All right. As a classified bargaining unit negotiator, I value the negotiating process as an opportunity to bring solutions to the table and CSEA's mission to improve the lives of our members, students, and community. So my question is, how familiar are the candidates with the collective bargaining process in public education? Ms. Steinreich, 1 minute.
Oh, geez. Okay, I've been doing a lot of research on this because, as I told you earlier, not having a contract is unacceptable. I don't care at what level. And I think that if we have to, we look at the team, the whole process of who we have representing the arbitration board, all those kind of things. That communication has got to go back and forth. With the Teachers Association, with the Classifieds Union, all those, they are important. Because our school do not function without our personnel. And if we don't have happy teachers, we don't have happy workers, we're not going to have a happy school. And so to me, it's just like customer service in the field mark when I used to be the manager. I told people, I want you to be happy. When people come to see us, you smile and you hear them and you listen to them. We want repeat customers. Same thing here. We want to treat our employees with dignity and respect because they're the ones that make us look good. They're the ones that are in the trenches every day doing the things that need to be done to help our children learn so that they can become productive citizens of our society. And so for me, it's very important that we negotiate and get these unions in order and with our district, and we are in lockstep. When we're looking at our budget, when we're looking at what needs to happen, we will make the changes we need to because they're important to us.
Thank you, Ms. Steinreich. Mr. Magarino.
That's always a rough question. I mean, a rough issue to deal with. Yeah, we were in negotiations for a long time, and we do have a fiduciary responsibility to our community. It is our responsibility to negotiate a fair contract that we can afford as a district. We cannot negotiate something that we cannot afford and then put our district at a deficit spending predicament, which we are. We actually are in a deficit spending predicament, but at some point you're going to go bankrupt if you go more than what you can afford. And what happens after that, if you do go into that direction and you are, you go bankrupt, well, guess what? The state's going to take over. And then we lose local control of our district. So yes, it was very tough negotiation period. It took a long time. We had arbitrators come, the arbitrators come in there. They looked at the budget and they said, yes, this is all they can afford. And beyond that point, we would go broke as a district. So I understand budget. I've done negotiations. It's rough. It's nobody ever walks out happy with them. I wish we could give them a 20% increase. I wish we could pay them all the money. I wish the state will give us a ton of money so we can pay our teachers well and keep everybody happy here. But the state's not doing that. They put that burden on us to make that decision, and it's rough. So, but the decisions have to be made.
Thank you, Mr. Magarino. Mrs. Mazie.
So that's unfair to call that a 1 minute response for that question. This is so complicated that it's not going to be answered completely in a minute. I have been involved in collective bargaining agreements I came from county government. I worked at the Department of Health and Human Services for 7 years. I was involved with the union for the county. And the issues are amazingly similar to the issues that we had in our county negotiations. And so I do believe that there are things that we need to look at in terms of how the negotiations are structured. Who's doing the negotiating, I think, needs to be looked at for everybody. I'm gonna put it out there that it isn't always the district that's unreasonable. It isn't always the unions that are unreasonable. That has been, oh, come on, no. It's not a minute answer. Just a little bit. I'm going to take from my last question where I just said yes. I think we need to look at that at the bargaining process. I think we need to look at the MOU and see if there's ways that we can clarify some points that tend to be pain points, and if we can get them in writing so that they don't come up every single time. It isn't just about money. That is a big one. But there's lots of other things, and that has been one of the things. The communication has been, I bring that up constantly. How you treat people, how you communicate, all of that has to come into it. And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is we don't have the money to do what we would like to do for you, but there's a way to say that people will believe. So I think this is a huge question, and we definitely need to work on it.
Thank you, Mrs. Mazie. Before we go to the closing statements from the candidates this evening, I want to send a thank you to Miss Denise over there for her timekeeping skills and give her a minute to talk about getting out the vote.
So this is where you get the rah-rah piece that you've gotten all the information you need about school board trustees, and now you can go vote. But I want to open it with a quote, one of my favorite quotes. Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Louise Brandeis, said, "The most important office, and the one which all of us can and should fill, is that of private citizen. And the easiest way to fulfill that office is to vote. And this year, Del Norte County's elections office is making it really easy to do that. So here are some highlights. Number one, all active registered voters will receive a ballot in the mail beginning October 5th for the November 3rd election. You can verify your voter registration, and this year you can track your ballot. Postage is paid on all ballots in the state of California. You don't need to add a stamp to it. If you don't want to mail your ballot, you can drop them in a secure drop box at the county clerk's office as well as City Hall, starting on October 5th. A third option will be to go to any of the 18 precincts and surrender your mail-in ballot to vote in person. And the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So you've got a big chunk of time. So here is my ask. Call to action. Do your research, have a plan, talk to your friends about your plan, encourage them to vote, and get out there and do it. And that's it.
Thank you.
Well said.
All right. So next up, we have our closing statements. And I believe that we'll begin with you, Mrs. Mazie.
So I am going to use my time because I am running unopposed. That doesn't mean that write-in folks couldn't potentially beat me, but I am going to use my time to piggyback onto what Denise said about voting. I am continually shocked. We look at the results that come in from the elections, at how few people in Del Norte County decide the fate for the entire 28,000 people who live here. it may feel like, why should I vote? I don't make a difference. I'm just one vote in California. It's not. It decides city council races. It decides board of supervisors races. It decides school board races. And it's usually fewer than 7,000 people who vote out of 28,000. Now, some of those are minors, I will say, but when you look at the percentage even of registered voters who actually go to the polls and vote, the minority is deciding what happens in this community, and we need to make sure that everybody has a voice and uses it. So whoever you're going to vote for is up to you. It's up to your beliefs. It's up to your values, but exercise that right to vote. People have died for that. So go out there and do it.
Thank you, Mrs. Mazie. Mr. Magarino.
Well, I've been, on the board for almost 4 years now, and I'd like to continue as a board member to, continue with the accomplishments that we've had, such as the improvement in our infrastructure and technology. Thank God that even though the board got a lot of pushback, we spent $2.5 million increasing our broadband from 2 gigabytes to 10 gigabytes. Now, can you imagine if we didn't have that infrastructure when this COVID hit? We wouldn't be anywhere near where we are right now because there wouldn't be any communications. There's no way we can do what we're doing now if it wasn't for the infrastructure with the technology. Also, we developed a good relationship with the law enforcement as far as with truancy. We decreased our truancy by a great deal. And I'm not saying that, we hired more cops or anything. It's just that we were able to go out there and reach out to parents that were struggling to get their kids to school. And we were able to reach out and help them get their kids to school. Also with transportation, we increased our service. We got new vans, new buses. So that was a big deal. By grant money, it didn't cost the district any money. And these are, brand new vans that we got, school buses. We also, expanded our communications with parents. We were able to reach out, and also as a result of our upgrading technology. So that was a big deal. And I'd like to continue so we can continue to upgrade things and also continue to reach out and get grants and reach out to the disadvantaged students in our district and try to lift them up so that we can have a positive influence in their lives. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Magarino. Ms. Steinruck.
Yes, I am running to get on the school board to serve. I'm here to serve. I'm here to help with the vision of Del Norte County. Governor Newsom just put out that we are going to go electric by 2035, 15 years from now. So what are we looking at as a district for fossil fuel? What are we looking at for climate change? What are we looking at those things that we have to start looking outside the box of the way that we used to do things? The industrial age is over. The information age is here. Yes, and Mr. Magarino, thank you for having that broad width expansion. But we have to do more in that area. And this novel COVID-19 virus is the first of how many? We don't know. Things are going to change. And do we have that vision to see it and to do it? And what I'm willing to do is make that commitment to make sure every one of our students gets the quality education that they need so that they may become a functioning member of our society and be happy and have a healthy life. So for me, I'm looking at myself as being an engineer for change. And as an engineer, we're going to come together in groups, work in dynamics. We're going to work together as a team, and we're going to grow this together. And I know we have a lot of things to look at, the vision of our district, the finances of our district, all those things. Like I said, to me, the school board is the heart. We have to keep that heart together And that way we get all the lifeblood out to the rest of the community as far as the students and the staff. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you. I appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Ms. Steinreich. I want to say thank you to everyone who came out this evening. Thank you, candidates, for coming out tonight and participating and answering your questions to help inform the public. And thank you to everyone who showed up to the forum to listen, learn, and thank you to our panelists for asking the questions. On October 9th, there will be a city council forum from 6:15 to 7:45, and you can check out the True North Facebook page for more information on that. And with that, we wish you all a good night. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you for the invitation. Good night.
Thank you for having us. Good night.
Good night.
you,
Thank
Angela.
you.
Good night.
There it is. So much.
Did Denise leave?
I think so. I'm just gonna end the meeting. Okay, talk to you soon.